Hello, welcome to Bill Mason Show. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to do this. This will be the second time we talked about Obamagate, but I think it's a good refresher because it looks like now that Durham's going to sit on his hands because he doesn't want to appear political by releasing any indictments right now. But we'll keep it
Right.
fresh in everybody's mind what actually happened.
That's correct. I mean, Obamagate, it's been going on, I mean, since the election, of course. That's when it happened. And it's very complicated, actually. It's not really straightforward as everybody thinks.
Well, I think that's part of the process. Like when you're trying to cover up a really big lie, you
Right.
could see the desperation when they found out Trump won, and they really only had till about January 6th to figure out how to cover their asses.
Right.
And that's really the problem here is that they started getting all hands on deck, and it got ugly real fast. And I guess they really hoped they could pull this off with this constant pressure, but Trump just found a way to persevere. I love it.
Yeah, they did. I mean, so the whole ball of wax is that they made up the Russia collusion thing to spy on the Trump campaign, and then to get dirt on Trump to try to get him to be defeated against, of course, Hillary to win the White House. So that's basically what happened. Spied on the campaign to drum up dirt.
Yeah. And everybody that was connected, they left kind of no stone unturned. They went after just about everybody that Trump chose early on to be part of, his little enclave. I mean, the guys that weren't even rock solid in there, like Papadopoulos, for example. George Papadopoulos was like, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be, you know what I mean, if I was going to be all the way. But, I had a couple of meetings and, I was on the team, and then everything got weird and people started calling me for meetings and stuff like that. And, he got set up. They went after the lower level guys first,
Oh yeah,
and it came up empty.
yeah. I mean, this goes to the highest levels. Of course, that's why it's called
It does.
Obamagate.
Yeah,
So Obama knew, Biden knew, everybody knew. Susan Rice knew,
absolutely.
Clapper.
Absolutely.
So
Clapper, Comey, Brennan. I mean, the list goes on. He used every single tool he had to try to make this not happen, which makes me think that after this, there's even more to uncover because it was just pure desperation the entire time.
right. So this show is to put it all together for you. You can always go back to this show and say, hey, this is what happened during
Yep.
Obamagate. So let's take a look at Trump, what he said about the treasonous actions of Obama. Take a look.
Yeah.
On Obama and the spying situation, this idea that they were spying on your campaign, you've been asked before about what crime he would have potentially committed. But I remember you talking to
Treason,
Well,
treason.
That's what I was going to ask.
It's treason. Look,
It's treason.
look. When I came out a long time ago, I said they've been spying on my campaign. I said they've been taping, and that was in quotes, meaning a modern day version of taping. It's all the same thing, but a modern day version. But they've been spying on my campaign. I told you that a long time ago. Turned out I was right. Let's see what happens to him now. Durham is. I never met Durham because I want to stay out of it because otherwise it's going to look political. But Durham, as you know, is a highly respected person. And Bill Barr is doing a great job as Attorney General. Let's see what they come up with. But they don't have to tell me. All I have to do is read the papers, the insurance policy. In case she doesn't win, we got an insurance policy. Well, that was all the stuff that we went through over the last, let's say, 2.5 years. Now we caught him. We caught him called Strzok and Page, the two lovers. Brennan and Clapper, the way they lied.
Democrats can't stand Barr.
Comey,
They just
they can't stand who?
Bill Barr. They just think he's political.
You know why? Because he's doing such a good job. Because he's law and order. But he's got them in his crosshairs. And now we have to see what's going to happen. I will say this, if it were reversed, and if the other side sat, we're at the Oval Office, right in that chair behind the Resolute desk, and it was the opposite, 2 years ago, 25 people would have been convicted, and they would be sent to jail for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. He's absolutely right. This is something that I think is the reason why Trump is the guy for the job. because any other guy, can you imagine Mitt Romney in this position? Or,
No.
you know what I mean? There is no way anyone else could have stood up to this amount of pressure and browbeating, and, you know, still persevered and still made it through, and has so many accomplishments. Like, even if you took this away and just listed his accomplishments, he's still going to go down in history as one of the best presidents as far as the numbers go.
Right.
And I mean, unless the Democrats get their way and they're like, you know, now they're talking about impeaching Barr. Why? Because he's getting too close. I mean, this is ridiculous.
It is. So let's tell the listeners a little background, what's going on now with an investigation about Durham.
Okay. Well, Durham is probably the most qualified guy to do this, because he has such a wide scope, okay, where he's going through FBI, like, all their documents have numbers at 702s and 302s and all of this stuff, word for word, line by line, interviewing people. They even flew to Italy to interview these people that early on, like, talked to Papadopoulos and all this stuff. So the amount of information that Durham has is enough to indict. And what drives me crazy is his recent release where, you know, he said, don't pressure me to finish this by the time the election, because I don't want it to look political. But I think the American people were really expecting the evidence that I know and you know is enough. If I was in his position, I would be like, well, Strzok's definitely abusing his power.
Right.
And, you know, you definitely have Comey sign 3 FISA warrants that he knew the information was fake. You know that McCabe actually set people up too. And I mean, all these guys, Brennan used the CIA. I mean, it is so deep and dark that all these guys abuse their power, and that's all against the law. Like Title 18, U.S. Code. This is all stuff that people go to jail for if you're on the other side of the aisle. These people be in jail, just like Trump said. So these people have a big D on their chest, and it's like a bulletproof, vest. It's terrible.
It's very bad. Let's take a look at Tom Fitton, what he said about who needs to be interviewed.
We need prosecution of the coup cabal. I don't know who exactly would be prosecuted, but I do know who they need to be looking at. Obama, Biden, Clinton, DNC, their lawyers, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Susan Rice, Brennan, Clapper, Bruce Orr, Glenn Simpson. What did John Kerry know? I don't know. I know his State Department was shoveling classified information after Trump won to his buddies in the Senate and the House to try to smear him. I know they were working on the dossier. What is Durham going to do anything about all of this? I don't know. Well, I kind of do know. I don't think he is. My instinct is he's doing an administrative review that may lead to prosecutions of some individuals. Maybe Strzok gets prosecuted. That would be good. This is why I think the president needs to appoint a special counsel outside the Justice Department to do this work. Because institutionally, I don't think they're capable of doing it.
And there we go. So the Durham report, should have came out, or would have came out sometime in the next few months or now. Now they're talking about after the election. Is that correct?
Yep, and he's flat out stated that he doesn't want it to appear politically motivated. So it's almost like he's telling the American public, yeah, I have enough to indict people and take people and bring them to justice, but because they're all Democrats, I'm going to look political, like they're accusing Barr. They're accusing Barr of being, Trump's do-boy and political hack. But it's a weird way of them saying, hey, just because all the Democrats are guilty, that means Barr must be anti-Democrat. Right. No, the fact is that all of you are guilty, and he's the law and order guy. Right. So guess what? The guy who has the power is going after the lawbreakers. The fact that you happen to be Democrats does not make Barr a partisan hack. Right. You're just all guilty.
Well, if no one goes to jail, they just do it over again.
Seriously. And oh my God, what message does it send to the American people? Like Barr was talking about in a couple of interviews about, the Americans need to vote in somebody who they know is going to have their best interests at heart. And he thinks that's why Donald Trump got elected, because the American public looked at Hillary and saw her other interests. It wasn't American interest. And Biden's the same way. He doesn't give a crap about America.
No.
I mean, this is the craziest part of the whole equation, that the Democrats are like a windsock. They just blow in whatever direction these outrage mobs want to push it. And this is the thing about Trump that I think solidifies him through this. I think he gets reelected regardless, but I think these people getting indicted would help a lot, because it brings to the fact that everything that Trump talked about becomes true. And then all of a sudden they have to back off, and they can't just accuse him of all these other things, of lying, he's racist, he's this, he's that. Like, you know, the one thing I touch on sometimes, like there was a Q post way back in March, and I didn't even know what it meant at the time, but it's weird the way it all comes into play, that it was like TTMR, something like that, NSA. And then I come to find out that the guy from the NSA who warned Trump, okay, his name was Mike Rogers. That's the MR. TT was Trump Tower, NSA. So he met with Trump and said, hey, man, don't do your meetings in the tower anymore. Guess what happened? Trump started meeting on the golf course. So this is the other thing that's coming into play. The Democrats are always talking about Trump's golfing. He's constantly golfing. You know why? That's the only place he could probably have a conversation that's not being watered down.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, this happens in third world countries where people spy, they get dirt on somebody, they leak it out to the press, and he's toast. So that's what's going on. So our democracy is toast. Is not going to be our democracy if we can't convict somebody with this.
No, and can you imagine if all you had to do is get convicted in the court of like public opinion? You know, all of a sudden, you know, they release, you know, a statement about me. They're just like, Bill makes racist statement or something like that, and I have no way to defend myself, and I never go to court, but I lose my job. I lose everything around me, and that's the cancel culture. So that's also running.
Right.
Yeah. They have also created that too, that regular people that wear a Trump hat, you wear a Trump hat to work, you could be fired. I mean, these are the things that they want. They want this fear of being pro-American. They want you to be scared of it. So anyway, back to Obamagate. This all started, I think, with Manafort and Flynn being experts in these foreign places where they did some dirty stuff. One being the Ukraine. Manafort could have pretty much walked Trump through the park on Ukraine. They made sure that they dirtied him up with the fake black ledger. Okay, the real ledger burned in a fire. And then they get it. What they actually convicted him on was, I think, lying on a mortgage application or something. I mean, this is the dirty games that they play. So they got him on process crimes, lying and whatever. And I mean, what multimillionaire hasn't fudged numbers either on taxes or on a mortgage application before? So they can pretty much do what they did to Manafort to anybody who makes like 7 figures. I guarantee it. So they did him, and then they were about to drop the case on Flynn. And then there's that communication where Strzok said, hold off, we could still use Flynn. And then in the January meeting, Biden's the one that comes up with the Logan Act. They're going to go after Flynn with the Logan Act, like literally like a 1791 law that said you couldn't speak for the country. You know, this is craziness. They had nothing, but they had the power to keep it going.
Right.
So it's all smoke and mirrors. And I think now with Durham kind of punking out, I'm hoping that maybe Trump says, you know, because Trump's also making changes again, which everybody says that he does it when he's scared. But no, he does it to scare his people, to say, do your job or I'm going to can you.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, if this was not working, you get rid of the people, put somebody else new in.
And he's always done that. And I heard stupid Juan Williams was talking about, because he fired Brad Parscale. He was like, oh, he must be really scared for his reelection to make a change now.
Well, he was demoted.
That's just Trump. But I mean, that's what he does.
Yes.
So, you know, on the Obamagate side, when he was picking his team, was he a little bit inexperienced? Yes, I will admit that he picked some people and he left some people after he got elected in place that he didn't have to. Bill Clinton came through when he got elected and was like, fired, 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 fired. FBI people, he cleaned house, put all of his people in, because everybody wants to talk about Gates. He had a bunch of Gates that were following him too.
Oh, yeah.
He had the what was that? The limousine company. What did they call that one? I forget what that one was. But anyway, he cleaned house, made sure that everybody who would have went after him was gone. Trump didn't do that. And I think that's kind of what bit him in the ass, is those guys were left in place. And even Comey's bragging about how he in any other administration, he wouldn't have dared send 2 people in to interview Flynn, you know, without a lawyer or anything. But he was like, Trump didn't know what was going on, so I did it.
Right. Well, let's take a look at spying on the, it was on Fox News a while back. Get some very good information. As you know, every phone call is recorded in the United States.
Yep.
Take a look.
Every phone call of every person in the United States of America since 2005 takes us back to a Republican administration, George W. Bush, 2005, which is when this program began. Justice Scalia told me he often thought that the court was being surveilled. And he told me that probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Again, surveillance, acquisition of information, unmasking, accessing information.
Well, I mean, step one and the surveillance is, I mean, why would the Obama administration, using government resources to spy on anybody running against Hillary Clinton? I mean, that is just wrong.
Well, it is you're exactly correct. It is the use to which the raw intelligence data can be put that makes it criminal. So if it's hard to believe, but if they had to unmask Senator Paul's name in order to understand a conversation he was having with a foreign agent, and the foreign agent was harmful to the United States, they can do that. That's not what he's talking about. They're talking about unmasking him when he's having a conversation with his campaign manager when he's running in the Republican primaries in 2016.
Exactly. Let's just be clear. This is 2 different things. The unmasking of Michael Flynn and the spying there is completely separate and apart from what Rand Paul is talking about. He's talking about running for president in the fall of 2016. He was surveilled, spied on by the Obama
Actually, the
administration.
unmasking of General Flynn might be a species of the same thing, because a lot of people believe, the president among them, that General Flynn was unmasked for political reasons. That is, portions of his conversation with Ambassador Kislyak were revealed in order to embarrass the president, embarrass General Flynn, and force the president to separate himself from General Flynn. But let me make an absolute statement. There are very few absolutes in law. The use of intelligence data for political purposes is a felony. It's the same crime as hacking, which, depending upon how much is done, is between 5 and 15 years in a federal prison.
There we go. So,
nailed it.
And a lot of people should go to prison for 15 years.
Absolutely. He nailed it too, because Judge Knapp has always been like, he's also like, read the Constitution like it's written, read the laws like they're written. And he's right that you can investigate almost anyone. Okay. If you, especially in their position, if you suspect somebody of something, but you cannot unmask them in a broad spectrum. Like the Obama administration, they had people like from the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Agriculture, unmasking General Flynn. They had like, there was no point to any of that. And they were literally on the lame duck portion of, it was like January when they were doing all of this. It's so uncalled for. And it just shows that they were scrambling for some last ditch effort, because he knew once Obama left the White House, the only people he had in place were those people that Trump left in there, which was, Comey and, Strzok. They were all still lingering around. And bring in Mueller, Robert Mueller, who's another stir up the pot guy. He knew he had no evidence in the Russia collusion 2 weeks into that investigation. And he held it so the midterm elections would give them the swing, and then now they can do the stupid impeachment. I mean, that is political partisanship 101, Bob Mueller.
Yeah, definitely. So now we have Susan Rice on a video coming up. Now, we already know the last National Security advisor unmasked, who unmasked General Flynn, and Susan Rice was one of them. Yep. So we're gonna play a video of her lying on the interview. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Disclosure by the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, that in essence, during the final days of the Obama administration, during the transition after President Trump had been elected, that he and the people around him may have been caught up in surveillance of foreign individuals and that their identities may have been disclosed. Do you know anything about this?
I know nothing about this.
I know nothing about this. Look, you see her blinking real fast.
Yeah. Breathing heavy
Right.
before it. I mean, I think there was a point where they knew that the crap had hit the fan. And, you know, that thing that they were talking about, like on the Chiron on the bottom, she sent herself an email that was so weird. Like, I would never send myself an email that says, my boss told me not to steal the money, therefore I should not steal the money. Love, Bill. Like, she sent herself a letter that said, Obama said to do everything by the book, therefore we do things by the book. I mean, this is like, come on, man. It didn't add up at all. And I don't know what she was thinking or doing, but an email like that is not going to cover your ass. I mean, she's up neck deep.
No, she is. I mean, you know, we know now that's she definitely lying there. So we're going to play a video too of a little history of what happened, so everybody get a little bit more perspective. So let's take a look.
Yeah,
Mark
it's a good
Levin.
one. Yeah.
Discussion of the 25th Amendment was simply how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort.
Something remarkable happened. The former Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, confessed to helping lead a coup d'etat against the President of the United States. This is a silent coup.
Where did the president get this latest conspiracy theory from?
This is about the Obama administration's spying.
White House officials say that the president's sources were various conservative outlets, most prominently perhaps radio host Mark Levin.
The evidence is overwhelming. Exhibit 1. Wiretap communications have been provided to the White House.
3 months ago, I talked about the police state tactics of the Obama administration. And that now is a fact. And forget about Russia. Watergate applies to what the Obama administration did. I'm telling you, this is the scandal of the century.
So it's nice to see now that we have radio hosts who are concerned about this. Where the hell were they in March? Wiretaps. Oh my God, Trump must be colluding with the Russians. And I say, look at this, domestic surveillance of a campaign by an administration. You cannot tell me that the President of the United States didn't know that. They were spying on these people and leaking their names to the media. Here the media are pushing the impeachment of the president. I'm calling them out for their coup efforts, which they admit they're involved in, but don't call it a coup. It gets worse and worse. The more we are learning the depths to which senior FBI officials, senior Justice Department officials, and others tried to reverse the course of history and reverse the course of your vote. This is a tremendous scandal. And when the historians write their history books, they're going to view it as one of the great scandals in American history. This is a silent coup.
Yes, so very good video. So this is the greatest scandal in American history, I think, or close to it.
Yeah, honestly, like Richard Nixon resigned for like 3 cassette tapes of recording people talking about absolutely nothing.
Right.
I mean, this is by far the biggest abuse of power that this country's ever seen. And the scary part is that it's an organized abuse of power. Right. This is not like one dirty cop. This is like an entire like alliance of people. Right. That worked every angle from all different Department of Justice levels, FBI, CIA, and you even had people on the outside. Like, people don't talk about the Orr, they call him Team Orr. Bruce Orr, who was like the number 4 in the Department of Justice, his wife worked for Fusion GPS.
Which made the dossier.
They created the dossier.
Right.
And basically handed it to him. I mean, this could never happen under anybody else's administration. I mean, the brass cojones on these people to just out in the open do this nonsense. I mean, I can't imagine not being scared of that. So this is the thing. they weren't scared to be this brazen. And like there was this one recording of Hillary Clinton from way back. She and they never identified her. She said, if you're gonna be bad, be so bad that people won't believe it when they talk about it.
Right.
And that's the Democrats in a nutshell. Like, they're like, we're gonna do so much wrong that people won't even believe it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they try to reflect back on you. This is what you did.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole Russian angle, you know, the Russian angle didn't really make sense until you realize that Flynn was the Russian angle. So Flynn, who would normally, part of his job, talk to Kislyak, you know what I mean? Who
The Russian ambassador.
The Russian ambassador. Why would they not talk? So it gave them some sort of angle, the Russia. And, you know, everybody knows that Russia likes to interfere in global politics. It's not just us, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of what they do, is interfere in global politics. And I think that once they had that in the court of public opinion, and then CNN took the ball and ran with it, and it was like Trump colluding with the Russians.
Over and over again. Yeah.
And Nancy Pelosi, well, if he's colluding with Russians, he shouldn't be president. And then it just went over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, it was like to the point where they had to appoint Robert Mueller at that point to get to the bottom of the Russia thing. And it took them 2 weeks to find out there was nothing.
Right. Yeah. So we have a little thing here about the how it all worked.
Yeah.
So it went from the DNC, they paid for the dossier.
Yep.
Went to Perkins Cole law firm.
Yep.
Went to Fusion GPS.
Yep.
Which wife worked at.
Exactly.
Christopher Steele was the author.
Yep.
So GPS
gave it to
Fusion.
McCain, the ultimate rhino.
Right. And then he gave it to the FBI.
Yep.
DOJ, and then it went to the FISA court.
Right.
And the FISA court didn't know it was paid for by the DNC either.
Right. That was conveniently left out, and the last guy to touch it was Comey. So, you know, Comey was the one who was falsifying documents. So, you know, for anybody to have their fingerprints traced to the guilty party, it's got to be Comey.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So let's take a look now. The IG report came out. Was it last year?
Horowitz, yeah.
Yeah, Horowitz IG report. So let's take a look at Lindsey Graham talking to him. Okay.
Yeah.
There came a point to where surveilling Carter Page became unlawful.
I will let the court decide that. The court has this report and will make that decision.
Let's put it this way. If you don't have a legal foundation to surveil somebody and you keep doing it, is that bad?
Absolutely.
Is that spying?
It's not. It's illegal surveillance. It's not court authorized
Whatever
surveillance.
illegal surveillance means, they did it. So all this stuff that they didn't illegally surveil Trump's campaign, they did because they had no legal basis after the January 2017 data dump by the Russian guy to believe that the dossier was reliable. They altered exculpatory information in June of 2017 that would have further proven that Carter Page is not a Russian agent. He was actually working with the CIA. Let me ask you very directly. Do you believe Carter Page is or ever was an agent of the Russian government trying to do harm to his country?
I'm going to refer to the evidence we found here, which is that at the end of this,
thank you.
The FBI, at the end of these FISAs, told us that they had found no evidence to corroborate the allegations in the Steele dossier related to him.
It's not that clean, folks. They knew and they ignored it. And they continued to surveil him. Why? Why did they doctor the email? The people who continued getting warrants after they knew it wasn't legitimate had a bias that reeked. How this thing was opened, I don't know, but I can tell you Mr. Durham has a different view. I respect your view that they may have been a lawful predicate, giving them every benefit of the doubt, but one of the people pushing this was Peter Strzok from day one. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a...
There we go. So it was just all made up to spy on Trump campaign.
I like how he wouldn't call it spying.
No.
He called it like
illegal surveillance.
Surveillance. I mean,
Yeah, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things, I don't know, people may not know, one of the reasons that they went after like the lower level guys like Carter Page is because they have what's called a two hop rule. So once you get a FISA warrant on him and his phone, you get not only everyone he calls or texts or emails, but everybody that is in there, you can hop into there. So you get 2 hops to Trump. It was very easy to get right to Trump's phone from Carter Page. All Carter Page would have had to do is call and say, hey, we're going to go to lunch on Thursday. And he'd be like, yeah, sure, meet you at Mar-a-Lago. Boom. Now they're into Trump's phone. I mean, it was simple and as honest as that, is that they knew from the lower level guys that had any kind of foreign tie, because both of those, Papadopoulos and Carter Page, both worked overseas. So they were like, okay, now we have the foreign in the FISA, because FISAs don't work on American citizens, so you need the F, which is foreign. You know what I mean? So they found it, and it's a big loophole that they had to use, but they found it through those 2.
Well, it's amazing how clean Trump is, because if they would have found any dirt, they would have released it.
Exactly. And I mean, the dude is, we knew what we were getting with him. I know I did. I knew he wasn't like a squeaky clean whatever, but I know he's a workhorse, and I knew he was going to get in there and get stuff done. But now this last, the hill they want to die on now is the taxes. They want Trump's taxes, because there's something in there that's going to, you know, take this man down. And I'm like, you know what? If they wanted to, they could have found a way to access bank records and taxes and all that stuff. Now, Deutsche Bank is apparently who he banks with or whatever, and they basically stood up and said no, because you know why? Deutsche Bank, if they do this to Trump and they release his bank records, they have the royal family's records, they have the Sultan of Brunei's records. They don't want to look like, because then all of a sudden those guys will start getting hung from doorknobs. You know what I mean? So Deutsche Bank is playing the very smart move by not releasing Trump's, and because there's so many other powerful people that bank with them. So that's where we're at.
Let's take a look at William Barr, what he said about all this, okay?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, maybe not. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't load.
All right. So instead of William Barr, let's look at Chris Wray and see if that plays.
Yeah.
Decisions about producing documents in a criminal prosecution are typically handled by the prosecutors. I will say that, of course, the Flynn investigation, which took place before I started, and then by the time I started was in the hands of the special counsel's office, is something that has, in my view, raised serious concerns and questions, which is why I ordered an after-action review by our inspection division to take a look at whether or not the FBI's policies and procedures need to be changed, and if there are any current employees left who may bear any responsibility for misconduct.
This interview happened before the appeals court decision on the Flynn case, siding with the Justice Department. But the FBI says no matter how it's decided, the after-action review will continue.
The president gave an interview in which he said just the other day, what does he think about this whole process as we wait for the Durham report, and he characterized it as treason.
It's treason. Look, look. When I came out a long time ago, I said they've been spying on my campaign. Turned out I was right.
What do you, looking at what you know, think this is?
On the Crossfire Hurricane matter, that's the subject of the IG report, I think it describes conduct that is unacceptable, period, full stop, and cannot be allowed to happen and will not be allowed to happen in
But whether
today's
it's criminal
FBI.
or not.
Criminal decisions, charging decisions, prosecution decisions are not made by the FBI director. Those are made by across the street at the Justice Department by the prosecutors.
But somebody here altered that FISA report, and that would be a criminal offense, right?
There we go. He sums it all up. So serious concerns, more than serious concerns, actually.
Yeah, to the point where even Chris Wray doesn't want to name the names of the people the evidence that they have. And like I said, what's tickling my aggravation node right now is the fact that Durham could be the guy who pulls the trigger on the biggest scandal in prosecution across the board in American history. And I think he doesn't want to be the guy with his name stamped on that document.
Right.
That's scary.
That is scary. I mean, if he can pull it off, that'd be great.
It really would. But it also makes me think, recently watching some of the people talk about, the people that pull strings behind the people that we see. And I'm starting to get like these implications that there are implications that somebody else is putting pressure on Durham, because why would he stop? He had so much momentum and everything was moving right to where everybody expected it to go, and then he pumped the brakes. I mean, very, very strange to have this much evidence and to not go anywhere with it.
Yeah, I mean, they might have threatened him to, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's a big scandal. A lot of big players too.
Absolutely. All the highest players, as high as you can get, realistically, all the way up to Obama. And, Obama, Biden, the guy that's currently running. I mean, I think that's what scares Durham a little bit. The fact that he could lead this directly to the guy who's running for president, and then the Democrat lynch mob, turns on him or whatever. Who knows, what he's thinking. But there's an old saying, when a fish stinks, the whole thing stinks, not just the head, not the tail, the whole thing stinks. And that's what stinks about the Obama administration.
Well, he could be waiting for, actually, is who wins the election. If he wins, if Trump loses, that means the report will be kind of flat.
Exactly.
If Trump wins, then the report might be phenomenal.
Right. Not only phenomenal, at least he knows he's solidified in his job. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Biden comes in weekend at Biden's. They're going to trounce him in, sit him down at the Resolute desk, put his arms up on the desk, and then start going to town. I mean, that dude's just a puppet. That's why they want him to win. But, what they would do is fire everybody involved, like everyone else has ever done that's gotten into that position. Fire, chop heads, start fresh, the whole nine.
Well, I'm going to play a video here about the FISA memo and how it all happened. The FISA memo, if you want to explain that to the audience before it plays, what that's all about.
Oh, how to get one? How to get a FISA? You mean?
That's correct.
Yeah, so you have to have reasonable suspicion that someone is using a foreign or releasing American intelligence to a foreign government or communicating with a foreign entity of some sort, and then they will get the FISA, which stands for Foreign Information Surveillance Act, I believe, something like that. So they get that FISA, and now you can use multiple agencies to spy or illegally surveil or legally surveil. Now, if it's a real FISA, and they have me, and I'm talking to Vladimir Putin, and I'm like, hey, Vlad, I got blueprints to all the fighter jets. I'll drop them off next week. Okay, that's legit. They got me. Okay, I'm colluding with the Russians, giving them blueprints of fighter jets. That's a bad thing. Right. But what they did with these guys was not have any real evidence, just the fact that they were in foreign countries and they talked to foreign people. I mean, that's not enough for a FISA. A FISA has, you have to verify all the facts before you get a FISA. It's like one of the it's not supposed to be abused. Right. And they found a way to abuse it.
They did. Well, let's take a look at this video.
Yeah.
But you have a right to know what happened with this FISA process and whether reforms are warranted.
The American citizens that are represented before this court have to be protected, and the only place that can protect them is the U.S. Congress.
It has been the talk of Washington for weeks, and today Republicans released a memo.
The memo reveals partisan bias at the Justice Department.
Grassley and Graham confirmed the information and went farther, revealing that information was passed from British spy Christopher Steele through an intermediary close to the Clintons and then to the State Department.
The Republican memo fairly raises questions about why certain facts were never disclosed to the FISA court.
Political dirt was used by the FBI, and they knew it was political dirt, to open a counterintelligence investigation into the other campaign.
This dossier was paid for by the Democrat National Committee and Hillary Clinton. They hired a political opposition research firm who hired Christopher Steele, who wrote it. See how easy and straightforward that is? It tells you the source with clarity and specificity. Now contrast that with the way it was presented to the court. For reasons the Democrats can never explain, the FISA application went to great lengths to avoid identifying a material point about the financial source behind the dossier.
Neither the initial FISA application in October 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, Clinton campaign, or any party campaign in funding Steele's efforts.
The Democrats claimed Chris Steele was a reliable source, but he wound up being dismissed as a source by the FBI for two different reasons. And in addition to that, Steele's reliability isn't the seminal issue. He didn't know the facts firsthand. He repeated what sources in Russia were telling him. So for that matter, a parrot could have been the source. If all you're going to do is repeat back what nameless, faceless people in another country are telling you, your experience and expertise aren't nearly as important as the reliability of the people you're listening to.
The DOJ and FBI had 4 opportunities to disclose these facts in the original FISA application and in each of the 3 subsequent renewal applications over nearly a year-long period, but never did. Now the Democrats on the Intelligence Committee, who opposed the release of our Republican memo, have since prepared their own counter memo.
Every single Republican on the House Intelligence Committee voted to release the Democrat memo. Every single one. On the other hand, not a single solitary Democrat voted to release the Republican memo. Not a single one. The lead Democrat most responsible for the drafting of the Democrat memo is Representative Adam Schiff. Representative Schiff didn't have much interest in finding out how much of the dossier was used, whether it was vetted before it was used, whether it was vetted, for that matter, after it was used, or who paid for it. Keep in mind, they went to court to keep you from finding out who paid for the dossier.
The American people will learn that the Democrats' memo attacks Republicans for questioning the integrity of DOJ lawyers like Bruce Orr and FBI agents like Peter Strzok, who have been either demoted or removed. The Democrats' memo also defends the integrity of Christopher Steele as a reliable and credible source, even though the FBI and Department of Justice terminated him.
In September 2016, Christopher Steele admitted to Justice Department official Bruce Orr his feelings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said he, quote, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president.
After all, we only have a FISA because you consented to it. And with that consent comes the obligation of those entrusted with power to exercise that power judiciously and to answer legitimate questions when you have them. And asking questions of those in positions of power used to be something we could all agree on.
There we go. I mean, that really explained it all.
Yeah, and I don't know how familiar like our viewers are with the dossier, as Brennan calls it, a dossier. So there was like some juvenile level nonsensical stuff. One of the things that got me was one of the things that Christopher Steele wrote is that a guy told him that Trump got a bunch of prostitutes and went up to a hotel room that Obama and his wife stayed in. He rented the room specifically and had the prostitutes urinate all over the bed.
Right.
And that was something that was in the dossier.
Right.
And it's like, if I were to read that, I don't know if I could read that to a judge, like a FISA judge, and be like, here you go, Your Honor. This is why, this is the reason we need to surveil the Trump team, because of the pee-pee tapes. I mean, it was such a BS dossier from the get-go. The fact that John McCain was like, oh, you got to read this. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. So when they started to lie to perpetuate it, that's another thing that our viewers need to know. It wasn't just once. This was 4 times total that they renewed FISA applications after they knew that the people they were watching were not guilty. They just kept renewing it because they loved to have the 2-hop rule. Right. And as the 2-hop rule kept going, they were like, man, this is great. We can't let this die. So Comey was the one to lie again, go back, renew it, because they run out, they expire. They give you like 30 to 60 days and then they expire. So Comey would go in, sign on it. Rosenstein, same thing. Rosenstein was like, yeah, we need another one. I mean, it was ridiculous, the amount that they took. Once they got away with it once, they were like, oh, well, let's keep going. We're already guilty.
So let's put it all in perspective. Let's do it one more time.
Yeah.
It was made up of a Russia collusion to spy on the Trump campaign so Trump would not be elected because they were against anti-globalism policies of Trump and American First policies. Basically.
Right, and the fact that, to go back to that little point, right? So the DNC actually paying and financing for a dossier from a guy who knew Russians. Technically, by law, Mark Levin said this too. I don't have the video, but that's colluding with Russians in itself. That is the DNC colluding with Russians for information on a political opponent.
Right.
The same thing that they accused Trump of doing to Biden. That's the craziest part of this, that this all started with the DNC financing that and dealing with Russian operatives to get dirt on Trump.
Right.
I mean, you can't really call the kettle black anymore.
And you can't even make this stuff up either. It's just so wild.
It is so crazy that once they started this, it was like, we have to keep going. We're in so deep that we can't stop.
Right, and they've been trying to stop them ever since.
Yes, and they haven't given up, really. And to give the Democrats, like, props, like, wow, the energy that they have, the just go out in front of cameras and lie and just do it again and again and again and get caught in your lie. And lie again. Like, that's the craziest part of these guys. They are proficient, prolific liars. Amazing.
Yeah, they do a good job, actually. I mean, I'm surprised what a great liars they are.
They are amazing at it. And it doesn't matter that they get caught, because there's so many people that it's like a tree. Like, there's a trunk of lies, and then there's all these branches of lies that they could just, go off on a tangent. Like, when they do run down, when Durham was sniffing up Brennan's tree, Brennan is one of the guys that really went dirty. He went rogue. Now, CIA has extreme powers. I mean, they could literally do anything. They could probably turn my computer camera on while I'm sleeping, watch me in my underwear. I mean, honestly, they don't need a reason. They're the CIA. So having Brennan, you don't even know the scope of the things that Brennan probably approved. I mean, that hasn't even come to light, but I'm sure Durham has that too.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, he needs to start interviewing. Supposedly, Tom Fitton said that they're not interviewing those people, the key people.
Right, right. And I've heard people say, "Oh, that's to throw them off. That's to throw them off. Let them think they're in the clear, and then all of a sudden, everything's gonna come to light." Like, there's still people talking that Durham's not backing down, that he wants them to relax and do something stupid, and then he's gonna be like, boom, subpoena, come in, and right in October or whatever, when we originally were talking about when this all comes to light. But so from the dirty dossier, right? We'll go there, and after they had the dirty dossier and the FISAs, it didn't end there, because they saw that was coming up empty, and then they had to make Trump look dirty by association, and that's when they went after Manafort and Flynn, on the timeline. Right. You had to have all of these things going on in the Trump administration to make it look like it was tumultuous, like everything was just crazy and falling apart. Meanwhile, he got in there day one and got to work. Honestly, like there was nothing that his campaign promises that he did not every day say, where are we at on this? Where are we at on that? And as we speak, the wall, the fence, the whatever, the border is being built and fixed and repaired, and the spots that, all of that stuff that he did the trade deals, he did it all, all amongst the media slander and all the other crap that was going on. I can't imagine if he had 15 minutes to breathe and actually just work like every other president did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Obama just chillaxed. He didn't do very much at all.
He didn't do anything. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing, Rush Limbaugh said it last week. It took a global pandemic to drop the stock market and the unemployment rates back to the Obama high level. That's the funny part. That, he was literally like just, riding.
Lost the video.
I muted myself.
There we go.
I muted myself.
All right.
Now I was saying he kind of rode the wave, and everybody says, like, once you get reelected, you're in that lame duck phase where you really start to do like the outlandish stuff that you wouldn't have did in your first 4 years. And that's where that tape comes from too. I don't know if our viewers are that, deep into it like us, but Obama is sitting there with a Russian ambassador right before his reelection, right before he beat, Romney or whatever. He says, look, when I get reelected, I'll have way more flexibility. Tell Vlad that. And then lo and behold, Crimea gets annexed.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was the prime minister. That was the president at that time, Meredith or whatever his name is.
That's it. Yeah, Medvedev or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy if you really looked at facts, like what he was actually doing while he was at the wheel.
Right.
It was toppling countries. He started Egypt down this downward spiral, and Libya and Syria. Like, he's all responsible for most of that. Right. And this is now something that Trump has had to deal with. And emboldening Iran, he sent those freaking guys plane loads of cash. Right. And then all of a sudden, I mean, come on, man. Trump has done everything he could and then some.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, that's the show tonight. So hopefully, this Obamagate comes to fruition and somebody goes to prison. Thank you for watching. Bill, do you have any other comments?
I guess the only thing I could say now is that the present statement of the Democrats now is, why is Trump still talking about Obamagate when we have a coronavirus? And this is the other thing, that they're going to keep pressure as long as the coronavirus is there, that nothing else can get done except talk about the coronavirus. I mean, even we stopped talking about it. We know it's still there, but there are other things that have to be done. I mean, the government just doesn't, slam on the brakes just because there's a global pandemic going on. I mean, there are other things that have to take place, and you can't not persecute somebody that's guilty. Like, that seems to be the Democrats' new MO, and they're practicing what they preach by letting all these arsonists and anarchists get off and not be prosecuted. And Philadelphia just did that last week. They let all the guys that started fires off and did not charge them. So that's their new MO, is that, it's a coronavirus, it's a protest, it's upheaval, we can't prosecute, we don't have time for that. That's the move.
Oh, wow. All right, well, thanks for watching. Tune in again next Tuesday, and have a good night.
All right, good night, everyone.